Welcome back to Full Circle Florida, and joining us right now, he is the host of the Ryan Gorman Show, weekday mornings from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on News Radio WFLA and the iHeartRadio app. Ryan Gorman joining us this week, and of course, Dr. Susan McManus, our political analyst, is back with us again. All right, well, no other way to say it, tough week. A lot of brutal images, disturbing information emerging from the Hamas attack on Israel. We know where our leaders stand on this, and ironically, for once, our leaders seem to be pretty united for the most part, at least right now, in their support for Israel. But I'm wondering if there's the same consensus among the American public at large. We saw the rallies in this country, different cities over the weekend, some pro-Palestinian rallies, rallies for Israel, obviously. I know where Jewish Americans obviously stand on this. I know where Palestinian immigrants and Palestinian Americans stand on this, but 80% of the rest of the country, do we know where the American public is on their support in this situation right now?
We do not, because what's happened is the coverage is focusing internally on areas where there are protesting groups going against each other, college campuses, and in certain communities where the population is concentrated. For example, in Miami, a very big pro-Israel protest, and one in Detroit, very big pro-Middle East protest. Mm-hmm. So we really don't know, but what we do know is that people are really getting antsy and scared about the future of this country.
Brian, your audience has been very engaged on your show.
Oh, yeah. I would say, first of all, I think it's jarring and disturbing what's happening on some of these college campuses. I think it's a real problem. I think the majority of Americans, because there is that relatability to the stories that we're hearing out of Israel, what happened to these families, I think most people are behind Israel for now. Mm-hmm. A lot of Americans were behind Ukraine at the beginning of that conflict when this same situation was playing out, when we saw the brutality and the regular people over there who seemed just like us being brutalized and murdered and slaughtered. And so I think that's where we're at right now. The question is, how long does that last for until people start to say, all right, this is enough? Well,
and you wonder, God forbid, there's some sort of attack. You know, they've announced this day of jihad, which obviously is not a day. We're all now looking over our shoulders for an indeterminate amount of time. Just from a PR standpoint, if you're on the side that's chanting death to America, don't be surprised if America is not supporting you. Mm-hmm. I just don't know where this goes from here.
Well, this is a huge concern, is the escalation in violence. We already have crime as one of the top issues before this came along. Yeah. Now there's worry about what this does to the economy, but the big worry is the border. And that's going to hit both parties, because the open border has generated a lot of concern that people have gotten into our country that haven't been adequately checked, that have terrorist backgrounds. It's terrifying to a lot of people.
Well, and the concern obviously is this spills over into other borders, inevitably we get drawn into it, and that's another test for the American appetite for this.
And I think this is a key moment for America, because you go back a few years and you look at what happened with the Kurds in Iraq and Syria and how we abandoned them. Then how we abandon our Afghan allies, and then our wavering support for Ukraine. If we don't stand strong with Israel, you're going to start to see allies waver in terms of being able to rely on America, if they're not already at that point, with other big issues down the road like Taiwan looming. So, you know, this isn't stuff that I think the average American pays a lot of attention to. It's a lot, but it's important for the future of this country.
Sometimes the world comes right to your doorstep. Yeah. One thing we're not talking about, the next deadline for the government shutdown, the House, total mess. As they are trying to figure it all out. We've got less than 40 days at this point for the next deadline. What is it going to take for this House of Cards that is the House of Representatives to get its act together and start leading this country?
A miracle.
I mean, just do your job. You know,
well, there's an urgency now, because there's another push behind all this. Supposing the dilly-dallying around and petty little politics going on there, that a real crisis hits here and they can't act, and they think they have a shot at next year's election. You know, this is very, very relevant. And I think that what you see is that you need a strong leader, just whoever, get somebody in there that can make decisions. We haven't even made a proclamation against the heinous things that were going on in Israel, for heaven's sakes.
I'm shocked by the lack of urgency to just figure it out.
Because it's all performative. Because that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing a small group in Congress. They're putting on a show. And they're creating the circus that we all are watching. And it's embarrassing, especially when you have these crises around the rest of the world.
Is it unfair to say this is a Republican problem? Because it is it's a handful of people that are holding this up, right? Or
this immediate issue is within the Republican caucus, but it's part of a larger problem that dominates both parties, I think, in D.C. and
Democrats are certainly taking advantage of it.
They want a straight party line or whatever. No idea in the world what it means to compromise, which was the basis of America.
Meanwhile, the other thing we were talking about, the Trump show, is on hold. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break here. Hold on, everyone. We're not done yet. Next on Full Circle Florida, our final thoughts on the week that was and what the next week may bring.